okay? So now we need to look at working problems from chapter 10. ROI, which includes margin and turnover, residual income, and economic value added. So let's go to need to get over here so I can see. Okay, here are our problem shells. All right. Remember, I said in many of the problem shells that I would have some of the information that could be in the multiple choice. So I've talked about decentralization. I talk about the 4 different responsibility centers. I've given you the formulas that you need to know related to ROI. And now we're going to do exercise 10.1. So for small division, we're doing small division. We want to calculate average operating assets, margin turnover, and return on investment. So operating assets, the average is beginning. And beginning is 6,394,000 plus ending of 7,474,000. We're dividing that by 2. Whoops. And that's going to give us 6,934,000. Okay. Margin. Operating assets. Operating income, I'm sorry. 2,773,600. 2,773,600 divided by sales of 34,670,000. 34,670,000. That will give you 0.08 or 8%. Turnover. Sales, which is right up here, that's our sales. 34,670. Divided by average operating assets of the 6,934,000. And that's going to equal 5.0. Oops. Okay. Then we have one more, ROI. We could calculate it 2 ways. I'm going to calculate it as if I hadn't done margin and turnover already. So net operating income is 2,773,600 divided by average operating assets of 6,934,000. To make that a little bit larger, it's kind of hard to see. And that's going to equal 0.40 or 40%. Since we've already calculated margin of 0.08 times turnover of 5, that equals 0.40 or the 40%. Okay. Now we need to do this for the cleaning division. So what I'm going to do is copy this. right there. So average operating assets will be 5,006,000 parentheses 5,600,000 plus 6 million divided by 2, and that should give us 5,800,000. Calculating margin. Operating income is 1,252,800 divided by sales of 31,320,000. And that will give us 0.04 or 4%. Okay. Turnover. Sales were 31,320,000 divided by average operating assets, which was the 5,800,000. And that equals 5.40. ROI, operating income of 1,252,800 divided by average operating assets of 5,800,000 equals 0.216 or 21.6%, or we could multiply margin of 0.04 times 5.4 turnover, and that gives us the same number. It's quicker to just multiply these two small numbers, since you already have margin and turnover, to do ROI this way. Now, what if operating income for small division was 2 million? How would that affect average operating assets? Okay, so which one are we doing? Small. Which one was 2 million? Oh, operating income, I'm sorry. How would that affect average operating assets? It wouldn't. Okay. How would it affect margin? Operating income is part of margin. So that would be 2 million divided by sales of 34,670,000. And that would equal 0.0577 or 5.77%. Okay, so it was, margin was for small 8%. So since income down, margin went down. How would have turnover? Turnover does not include income. It has no effect on turnover. How would it affect ROI? ROI will probably end up going down. Okay, so ROI, 2 million divided by 660. Average operating assets of 6,934,000. That equals 0.2884 or 28.84%. So since the numerator went down, the calculation will go down. Now, one of the things I want to caution you about when you're doing these numbers and pulling them on an exam is to be very careful about pulling the numbers. So this one right here that's in yellow is 1,252,800. Students tend to sometimes not do the 800. They're just in a hurry and they're not putting it in correctly. So be very careful when you are pulling numbers from problems to make sure you're doing them correctly. So I have included advantages of ROI and disadvantages of ROI in the notes. And then I've talked about residual income. I'm giving you the formula and what an advantage of residual income is and a disadvantage. Remember, residual income is an alternative. Problem is you cannot compare divisions of different sizes using our ROI, residual income. As long as it's positive, you're doing a good job. Okay, so we're using the same data. So for cleaning products, we're going to do small appliances first. So the income for small appliances was 2,773,600. Minimum acceptable return was the 8% times average operating assets of 6,934,000. That's going to give us 554,720. So residual income is a positive number, and it is 2,218,880. So as long 880, as long as it's a positive number, they're doing a good job. Okay. Now we're going to calculate this for cleaning products. So for cleaning products, the divisional operating income was 1,252,800. We're going to need to calculate minimum acceptable return, which is going to be 0.08 times average operating assets of 5,800,000. So we are subtracting 464,000. So residual income ends up being a positive number of 788,800. Okay. So as long as it is positive, you are doing a good job. We don't look at the magnitude. We do not compare the 2,218,000 to the 788,000. Okay. What if the minimum return was 9%? How would that affect the two divisions? Okay, so let's copy this one right here. This is 0.09. It's a larger number, so we would expect minimum acceptable return to be larger. And so that would be 522,000 even. So our residual income is still positive. $730,000. Oops, did I pull the right one? Cleaning products. Oh. Sorry, my babies are getting upset. Did I do cleaning products? No, I didn't. I pulled the other one. Okay, so I'm doing just one of these. This is 0.09. Well, this is going to be 0.09 times 5,008,000. Which is going to make this 522,000. This is still positive, but it's not as large of a positive number. But remember, you can't look at the magnitude when you are checking performance. Okay. So this one would be 730,800. Okay. So up here for cleaning products, it was 788,000. For cleaning products with 9%, it went down to 730,000. Okay. Now I'm going to skip that one. And I want to go to another problem, exercise 10.7. I want to do all of the ROIs together, okay? So we're going to do ratios, round your answers to 4 significant digits. We have frozen foods year 1 and 2, and we have canned foods year 1 and 2. So frozen foods first. In this one, they calculated average operating assets, so we didn't have to do it. So year 1, Operating income was 420,000 divided by average assets of 4 million. And that's going to give us 0.105. Okay, 0, they want 4. Year 2, income is 434,000, so income went up, but average assets stayed the same. So we would expect the return on investment to go up 0.1085. So it did increase. Income increased, average assets stayed the same. Then doing margin, need to do 1. Operating income, 420,000. Divided by sales, which are 6 million. For year 1. So that gives us 0.07. For year 2, 434,000 divided by sales of 6 million too. So both income and sales went up. And we ended up with the same one, 7%. Turnover, year 1, sales are 6 million. Divided by average operating assets, that was 4 million, stayed the same each year. That's going to give us 1.50. Year 2 went up to 6,200,000. Average assets stayed the same from year 1 to year 2. So since sales went up, the denominator stayed the same. The turnover should increase, and it is 1.55. Okay, so that is frozen foods. Now, to do canned foods, I've copied them over again, so the numbers are right here. Year 1, income is 2,400,000 divided by average assets of 1 million. That equals 0.2024. Okay. 0. I don't know what I did. Year 2, 2,000,006 divided by 1 million. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm not picking up operating income. Picking up the wrong number here. Operating income is 120,000, which is 0.12. And this one, I thought it was large. Operating income is 117,000 divided by a million. 0.1170. Margin. Year one. Income is 120,000 divided by sales of 2,000,004. Equals 0.05 in year two. Income of 117,000 divided by sales of 2,600,000. So income went down, sales went up, right? So it should be smaller, and it's 0.045. Then turnover, year one, sales are 2,400,000 divided by average operating assets of 1 million equals 2.40. Year two for can division, 2,006,000 is the sales divided by the 1 million equals 2.60. Okay. So the change from year one to year two for each division in ROI for can division, the assets stayed the same, but income went down. So that's why ROI went down. Okay. In frozen, income went up while assets remained the same, which is why the ROI increased. Then ROI and investment decisions, we're going to use the same data as 10.7. Can division, which one is can division? Can division is the second one. They were concerned about their ROI. It was 0.2. Okay. So they have an opportunity to invest in two projects. They're independent of each other. So they can do fruit, juice boxes by itself, fruit and veggie pouches by itself, or both of them. So compute the ROI for each one. So let's look first at juice boxes. Operating income would be $6,250 divided by an investment of $50,000. And that gives us 0.125. Fruit and veggie is 3,800 divided by a $40,000 investment. Okay, and that gives us 0.095. That's separately. So compute the divisional ROI for each of the following 4 alternatives. So just the juice box is added. So we're going to take the original profit of 117,000 plus this profit of 6,250 divided by the investment of, was it 1 million? Plus the 50,000. And that's going to give me 0.1174. Okay, for the fruit pouch. So again, I'm going to take the 117,000 plus the fruit pouch was 3,800 divided by the 1 million plus the 40,000 investment. And that's going to give me 0.1162. Okay, both are added. Okay, so I'm going to do the 117,000 plus 6,250, 6,250 plus 3,800 divide by the 1 million plus 50,000 plus 40,000. And that gives me 0.1166. And if the status quo is maintained, it will be the same ROI, which is 0.117. Okay, so now we're looking at this, 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 and the current ROI. Okay, so assuming the divisional managers are evaluated and rewarded on the basis of ROI performance, which do you think the divisional manager will choose? The manager will only choose an alternative that will increase ROI. So we go from 0.1170. This does not increase it. Okay. This does not increase it. This one does. So they are going to use add juice boxes only. Okay. Now, all the other alternative does have a positive ROI, 0.095. So this is an instance where you have to be worried about competition, that you're doing something that's good for your division only and not considering the effect on the company as a whole. Okay, so they both are viable alternatives because they both have a positive ROI. So now I want to go to transfer pricing. We're not doing. So I want to go back now to EVA. Where's the problem on EVA? Okay. So we're going to go to brief exercise 10.3. We want to calculate the after-tax cost of each method of financing. So for mortgage bonds, the interest rate, this is in yellow. So mortgage bonds are in yellow. Unsecured bonds information is in green. And cost of common stock is in blue. Okay. So the interest rate for bonds is 0.04 minus 30% minus 0.04. Okay. And that should be 0.12. So 0.04 minus 0.012 equals 0.028. Unsecured bonds, the interest rate is 6%. So 0.06 minus 0.30 times 0.06 equals 0.06 minus 0.018, which gives us 0.042. Then the cost of common stock, the return on long-term treasury is 0.04 plus the risk factor of 0.08, which equals 0.12. Okay, so now we're going to plug these numbers in here. So this is 0.028. This is 0.042. This one is 0.120. So we need to figure out what percentage of the total amount that we're employing will be from mortgage bonds. So 2 divided by the 15 million gives us 0.1333. 4 divided by the 15 million, so it's double, so it's going to be 0.2667. 9 divided by the 15 million is 0.60. Okay. So the weighted cost, we're going to multiply the percent of the total times the after-tax cost. So for mortgage bonds, that's 0.0037. For unsecured bonds, that's 0.0112. For common stock, that's 0.072. So the total is 0.0869. That's the weighted average percentage. Okay, cost of cap. So the amount of capital employed is 15 million times the 0.0869 gives us $1,303,500. Okay. So calculating economic value added. So the after-tax profit was the 1,900,500,000, 1,196,500. So 1,196,500 minus the 1,303,500 equals a negative 107,000. So we destroyed wealth. Whoops, got a 0. Okay. So that was not a good investment based on the information we had. Now, what if the common stock was less risky than the other stocks and commanded a risk premium of 5%? How would that affect the weighted average cost of capital? Okay, so only stock is changing. So stock, the return on long-term treasury bonds was 0.04 plus not minus the risk factor of 0.05, and that gives us 0.09. Okay. So mortgage bonds will not change. That's going to stay 0.0037. This will change. Unsecured bond will not change. 0.0112. What changes here is this becomes 0.09. So it's 0.06 times 0.09. And that gives us 0.072. Right here, this one changes, sorry. This becomes 0.09. So 0.60 times 0.09 should be 0.54. 0.054. 0.54. So if you add 0.0037 plus 0.0112 plus 0.454, note it went down because the 5% went down. This ends up being 0.0689. So we're just transposing two numbers. So we're going to go down here. And we're going to multiply times that. And that's going to be 1,000,000 0.33,500. So we will have after-tax income of the 1,196,500 minus 1,033,500, and that ends up giving us, it's less, so it's a positive number, which is good, 163,000. So we created wealth. Okay. So that is working through chapter 10. So for chapter 10, you need to know how to calculate ROI, margin, turnover, residual income, economic value added, EVA. Those are the types of problems you need to do. Then you need to decide based on those ratios whether or not you would or would not invest in opportunities. Okay, so that covers all of chapter 10. So we have one more chapter to cover for this semester, and that is chapter 16. So we're going to stop here with chapter 10 and come back and start on chapter 16.